Oshkosh Advisory Park Board. Please make sure anyone in the room has their cell phone silenced, and those on the video, make sure you're muted unless you're speaking, just to kind of deal with, any ambient noise. All right, roll call.
Bartelt.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Dearth.
Here.
Royal.
Here.
Hudak.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Metz.
Here.
Millette.
Here.
Palmieri.
Here.
All right.
All right, moving on to the August 10th minutes. Any questions, changes?
I move to accept as documented.
I second.
Thank you.
Do the vote, Stace.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So, okay.
All right, any old business? All right, moving on to new business. We have a presentation from the city's attorney's office to go over public meetings.
Good evening. So I'm the city attorney, I'm Lynn Lawrenson, and I brought with me my staff, Dave Praska, who's the deputy city attorney, wave from the back, and the assistant city attorney, who's Amy Vandenhogen. And you should have received with your materials for this evening the Advisory Parks Board manual. It's a green manual. I believe we had one previously for this board or commission. This is the updated new version, so you can take the old one and throw it out. It covers some of the same things, but we've also included some additional information in the new manual. So we're gonna kind of quickly cover the information for you tonight, and then you can always, when you have insomnia and need to have something to read at night, you can read through the rest of it. If you have any questions or concerns ever, you can call our office. You'll now be able to put sort of a face to all of us, at least half of one. And any of us would be happy to talk to you about any of it. So we're going to cover open meetings, public records, ethics, the general rules for running a meeting and rules of order, your ordinances specific to your board or commission, and where you fit in the city's scheme of things, and some guidance for decision making. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy because she's actually going to start you out.
So hello, I'm Amy to all of our virtual participants and our in-person participants. So starting with open meetings and public records. The law of the state is that the public is entitled to the full and most complete information available. And with that, I'm going to be going through, starting on page 4 of your handout, open meetings. So the open meetings law in the state requires that meetings are held in places that are publicly available, reasonably accessible to all citizens at all times. What does the open meetings law apply to? It applies to a governmental body, which this board is. It also applies to meetings. And that's where you kind of just have to look through your chart on page 4. It's not a chart, excuse me. Look on page 4 to see if what you're doing is a meeting. Now, it's pretty obvious at a regularly scheduled meeting like today, that's a meeting. This would be something that's subject to the opens meeting law. But there are also other things that you're going to want to look out for. And there's 2 tests that are highlighted on this page, the purpose test and the numbers test. There may be things outside of regularly scheduled meetings like today that may technically fall under the open meetings law. Looking at the numbers test, you're going to want to look to This could be a situation where you're meeting with a group of people from your board outside of a meeting, and if there are enough of you, it may constitute an open, or it may fall under the open meetings law. As you can see, if half or more are present, it is presumed to be a meeting, but we generally say 3 or more, you're going to be wanting to watch out for that. So again, we're not trying to discourage this board from talking. We want to encourage you to do it when the public has a chance to view your conversation. So that's the numbers test. You want to see how many of you are getting together. And then also the purpose test. If 3 of you are meeting just to have drinks and a dinner and you're not talking about business of the city, that doesn't fall under the open meetings law. Where you're going to run into problems though, is if that same group is out to dinner and now suddenly the conversation steers towards something that you're going to be hearing a presentation on, something you need to vote on. At that point, just leave the topic out of that dinner discussion and have the discussion in the public forum again where our citizens can observe. So the 2 tests, numbers and purpose. Looking at the bottom of page 4, we start talking about communication outside of a regular meeting. And on page 5, we list a couple of those categories. Written correspondence, we're generally not too concerned about that because it's generally one way in nature. Someone may be sending you materials ahead of time for you to review. You might get a letter from a citizen in the community. As you go down the page, that's where some of the concerns with open meetings start cropping up. Telephone calls, again, that kind of sticks to the in-person conversations that you want to look at the numbers test and purpose test. But once we start getting to electronic communications, that's where you need to be careful, especially with the reply all feature. Suddenly you can have a conversation where you're including everyone on your board and you're really just having a meeting outside the presence of the public. And finally, we get to walking quorum on the bottom of page 5 and into page 6. It explains that. Again, we're concerned with the numbers, but what we need to, when you're looking at, am I having a meeting? It's numbers and purpose. Walking quorum is where I go to person A, have a conversation and say, oh, this is how I'm thinking about things, or this is how I'm going to vote. And then I go to person B and have that same conversation. And by basically chaining people together, you've created a meeting outside of your regularly scheduled meeting. Again, we are not discouraging conversation. We just want you to have it in a way that the public can be a part of it. Last thing to note on page 6 is if you are going to another board or commission or committee in the city, that technically could be if enough of you go from your board to another committee or board, that could technically be an open meeting of your board. So if you are planning on going to another committee, another board, just let your staff know so that they can kind of decide if that's okay, if they need to do any special notices. Excuse me. All right, so going through all that, if the open meetings law applies, hope you don't mind, I'm going to take my mask off for just 1 second because it's getting a little hard to breathe. All right, if it applies, you need to make sure that you're giving notice. Generally, we do that 24 hours in advance at a minimum, but we do prefer greater if we can. Closed sessions, to be honest, you guys probably aren't going to deal with that, so I'm not going to go into that in any depth. Finally, as a note, citizen participation. I've been talking about that a lot. That's what's important in the open meeting. You will note on page 7, that it is only participation. That is what's required under an open meetings law. Excuse me. That does not require participation. It's just that they can observe. I don't know if I said that right. So all they can do is, all that's required is observation. Participation, meaning public comment period, is not required. That is something as a board you can decide as a matter of how you want to operate, when you want to allow participation and when you don't. All right. So that gets me through the open meetings portion. I'm about to go into public records. I'll just pause for a second to see if anyone has any questions.
Amy, this is Lori.
Yes.
Just on the last, the end of that page 7, where it says the minutes and recording of votes are required to keep the record of motions and roll call votes of each meeting of the body. Is that also requiring the attendance be taken?
By you or by staff?
Yeah, staff, the board, whomever is the record keeper.
The attendance isn't specifically called out in the statute, but I think it's probably implied because in order to have the votes be meaningful, you need to know how many people were present at the meeting. Is a vote a majority or not a majority of the vote? So the statute doesn't call out attendance per se, but in order to make your minutes make sense, attendance is kind of implied.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else, or are we just looking for okay, I think we're good. So moving on to public records, this will be a little shorter because generally staff is going to take care of that for you. We will take care of the agenda and minutes, and we will also help respond to record requests. So for the most part, you don't have to worry about this. The one part I do want to highlight is about the 4th or 5th paragraph down. It starts talking about emails. Now it's possible as a board member here that you get an email from the city, and that'll come through on the city server, and you will get it sent to whichever personal email address you have let IT know about. That email will be saved on the city system. However, your response, if you respond to that email from a personal email, will not be saved on the city server. What we would recommend is that you copy, if you use email and you are responding, that you copy Stacy or a staff member here at the city. And by copying that individual, a city employee, that email is now saved on the city server again. So you do not need to worry about record retention. If you are going to email without copying a city staff member, it will be on you to make sure those emails are saved. Whether you use a separate email for your emails here on the board or whether you're segregating that in a separate email folder, if you choose not to CC a City of Oshkosh staff member, it's on you to make sure those are saved. Does that make sense? Okay. I think I'm seeing head nods. And that kind of covers it from a public record standpoint because, again, staff will take care of it for the most part. We just need to make sure that if you are corresponding by email, that we're preserving any responses that you are generating. And that's kind of the public record spiel. So unless there are any other questions, I don't see any, I will turn it over to Attorney Praska.
I'm going to speak briefly about ethics. Ethics can come up in one of two ways for folks in your position. The first way is when someone wants to give you something, and then the second way is when you're going to vote on something and you may or may not have a conflict of interest. The overarching thing to think about in either one of the scenarios is you can have an actual ethical issue or you can have something that may not violate the ethics rules, but to the public they have an appearance of impropriety. So even if you're not actually violating it, you have to consider whether or not someone, the public looking at what you're doing, does it appear that you might have an ethical issue? The first one, accepting items. That is when you, as a member of the board, are offered something that benefits you privately. It benefits you privately, but you're receiving it because you're a member of this board, and it also has to have substantial value. So whether someone offers to buy you dinner, whether they want to give you tickets to some event, or there could be lots of things going on in the community. If they want to give you something, you have to think about, why are they giving it to you? Does it benefit you personally, and is it of substantial value? Along those lines, there are all kinds of things. It might be someone that you've known since elementary school, and they routinely buy you, or you exchange buying drinks or whatnot. In that case, they are more friends, probably, than doing that because of your position on this board. On the other hand, if it's someone you don't really know and they're offering to buy you things or invite you to some event, you have to consider whether or not are they offering it to you because of who you are, or are they offering it to you because of your status as a member on this board? Be careful about when they offer you things, or someone offers you things. Is it to influence your vote on something that's coming up, or is it a reward for a vote you've already taken? The other ethical issue is conflicts of interest, and so as a member of the board, you can't participate or take action on an item that affects you, your immediate family, or an associated organization where you have a substantial financial interest. The affecting you or an immediate family member is an easy one. The little bit more difficult scenario comes when it's a organization that you might have an interest in. The common example is where you're an employee of a business that has a matter before this board. You have to decide, do you have a substantial interest in it? And again, I'm on page 9. There's a couple asterisks, so it explains more in detail. To have a substantial interest, that includes an ownership interest. It's not just because you're an employee that would get you into trouble. So just keep that in mind. So those are the two main issues. Something to keep in mind also about making the decision as to whether or not you have an ethical issue and what to do about it. The issue is it's in each one of your judgments to make that call. In other words, if you think someone else on the board has an ethical problem, there's really nothing you can do about it. Each individual member has to make their own decision. I guess that's the good news. The bad news is if you make a mistake or guess wrong, each individual member is responsible for whatever might happen individually, not as a member of the city or not as a member of this board. Any immediate questions? All right, if not.
Did you mention the sheets?
The what?
The ones from the state?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Just as you're paging through the last few pages on that ethics, there are some guidance sheets from the state of Wisconsin that really help you work through a problem. So if you have a question and you're not sure, I highly recommend taking a look at those. They're very easy to read. They kind of walk you through step by step how to look at problems. And then again, if you ever have questions and these don't answer it, or you think they answer it but you're not comfortable, call one of us. We'll help you walk through it too. But I just wanted to point those out because I think they're really good. I'm going to start on page 16. These are the general rules of order. So for running your meetings, and we want your meetings to be smooth. We want your chair to have an easy job of doing this. And Robert's Rules of Order is about a 900-page book. I can do this for you in about 6 pages or so. So we condensed the city clerk. I will give credit where credit is due. The lovely city clerk and I used to keep pages of sheet notes on most common motions and do they require a second? What's the vote on them? Is it a simple majority, more than a majority? We cleaned that up for you and we're sharing them with you. So if you look at starting on page 18, you'll have a chart with the most common motions. This should cover everything you need to know, or any motion you probably will ever have to make. If you're doing something outside of this chart, you might be getting too tricky for your own good, but it should hopefully would give you everything you need to get through a meeting. A couple things I would point out: the original motions, I move to adopt or recommend the council accept a bid for playground equipment. I move to approve the CIP. Amendments, I move to amend the motion to approve the CIP, but include an extra new truck for Ray. So all of those are listed on there under the taking up items of business. The columns will tell you whether a second is required, whether it's debatable, amendable, and then the vote required. Most things are a simple majority vote. If it's not a simple majority vote, it's noted on there. Call for the question. So things are going on and on and on and on, and you can't do this to me tonight, but you probably are thinking about it right now. If you want to, we've had enough, shut her up, call for the question, okay? Then the way that, this is a little different if you're familiar with Robert's Rules. The way we do it here is that if we've talked about it, we talk about it, we talk about it, I feel like, okay, we're just going around in circles, so I'm going to call for the question. If nobody objects to that, then the chair would say, okay, no objections, we'll call the question. If we're talking about it, I say call the question, and Chad says, wait a minute, we're not, for my purposes, you're on the board tonight because you're here. Then Chad would say, I object, I have one more thing I want to say. Then you would take a vote on whether or not to call the question and cut off the debate. So that is a little bit different from Robert's Rules, so I wanted to just point that one out. Questions on page 19, questions or concerns, other issues outside the substance of the debate. A lot of times you'll hear people talk about points of order or parliamentary inquiries, points of information. Honestly, I will tell you they scramble in my brain once in a while, so we gave you a little example of each. So point of order is if the rules are not being observed. We establish a rule that says a citizen can talk for 3 minutes. I've gone on for 7. You can say, wake up, chair, point of order. The citizen's gone on. You know, we need to give other citizens time to speak now because one of the rules is not being obeyed. A parliamentary inquiry, that's really hard to say with a mask on. Parliamentary inquiry is help with some parliamentary procedure. I would like to make a motion to amend this, but I need some help figuring out how to word it. Staff can step in or the chair can step in, another board member can step in and help you. Point of information is just ask a question. I just want to be clear, if I say yes to this motion, that means whatever. And if I say no, it means the opposite, okay? Question of privilege. It's too noisy, it's too cold, it's too hot. Chad is looking at me. Whatever the problem is, that's a question of privilege, and the chair will take care of it and ask staff member, can you check the heat? Can you tell Chad to stop looking at her? Whatever the problem is, okay? And then appealing the chair's decision. The chair makes a decision. If the board wants to, has a question, we're not sure you did that right, chair, they can appeal your decision. So I would say, I want to appeal your decision. That does require a second, and it is a majority vote. So if it's not seconded or it's not carried by a majority, the chair's decision stands. The last page is some that you deal with all the time, adjourning and recessing. And then every year you elect officers, so there's some, your basic motions for that in there as well. A few of the following pages have just a little extra information in regard to some of those votes that are laid out in the charts on the page before. The one that I will note that's a new addition as of this summer is abstentions and voting present. We did take a look at this and brought it to council, and the council did change that rule. If a person declines to vote and it falls below a quorum, that person's failing to vote causes you to fall before a quorum, you will have a couple of options. You can either schedule it for consideration at your next meeting when maybe you'll have enough people there to actually vote on it and have a quorum, or you can forward whatever it is to council without a recommendation. Basically, if you're just voting present, it's saying I'm not counting you as a yes or a no vote, okay? If there's an applicant or if there's a time consideration staff, then you guys have the option to also step in and suggest, we're under a time crunch on this one, you may want to just send it on to council. So that's just one that's come up. I don't think it's come up in this board, but it came up with a couple of our other boards and commissions. So that was a change that was made. The civility project is included actually at the beginning of the rules, and then we also included it at the end of the rules, and it mirrors the posters in the room, and so we wanted to make sure you had that as well. Any questions on your basic motions or conducting business? I'm seeing no head shakes, so I will turn it back over to Dave.
So starting at page 25, for those of you following along, the ordinances that you are governed by. So the Common Council created this board, and then they created on page 26 and 27 and a little bit on 28 some general rules that apply not only to this board but to all boards and commissions. It's fairly straightforward. I won't go through them. And then on page 28, the council also created specific rules for the Advisory Park Board, membership and terms, the functions that you're authorized to undertake, and then the coordination of your board with other governmental units. And then if you turn the page, there's a fold out, which is a transition between what I just said and what Lynn's going to be talking about. There's a table of the city organization, both of the boards and commissions, of which you're all a part, and then also it has a list of the staff for all the departments. So the takeaway from that chart, and Lynn's going to talk more about that, is you have your own agenda and your business that you're taking care of, but you're part of a large organization. There's some overlap in some cases, but you're a piece that's part of the whole.
Okay. After the chart, you have some a couple of sheets with some of the other boards and commissions. We tried to pick out the ones that we thought were probably the most likely that you would interact with. Obviously, City Council, the Plan Commission, Landmarks Commission, Public Arts and Advisory, Bike and Ped, Sustainability, Traffic Review, and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And then behind those pages, we gave you a list of all the other boards and commissions as well for your reference. All of this is just trying to give you kind of a perspective of what else is out there and where you fall in the land of the city of Oshkosh here. So hopefully that information will be a helpful reference for you. Outside the city of Oshkosh, we also have a couple of entities that we wanted to highlight for you. The Regional Planning Commission, they are a strictly advisory body, but they do provide some services. And I don't know if, Ray, if you've had a chance to have them interact with the Parks Board or not, but on occasion, I know the Plan Commission, and Alexa's here from Planning, she can tell you they do interact with them, and they've helped with some of the stuff, plans with the city. So you may at some point see them. GoH&I is the Healthy Neighborhoods, and also the neighborhood associations we wanted to note. So following those pages, just at the end, are some guidance for decision making. And all that is just kind of an outline of, especially if you're a new member on the board, you know, how does this kind of work? If it's a general matter that's coming before the board, we talk about your role. You're responsible for reviewing and providing a recommendation on various items related to the operation of the Parks Department. How does that work? Generally, items are going to be probably introduced by title. You're going to ask for public comment, close the public comment. Then the board is going to discuss it and act on it. We gave you your ordinance reference there. The second page is a little different. In some cases, the Parks Board may be responsible for providing a recommendation on things that may have a significant impact on an individual person or an individual property. When we are, as a governmental unit, when you're dealing with an individual person or an individual property, then due process is involved, which Scott is really familiar with, if he hasn't forgotten by now. But due process requires that anybody whose rights may be affected is provided timely notice and opportunity to be heard. And then they have the opportunity to know everything that you're basing your decision on. So it's not going to come up that often for you, but I could potentially see, you know, we are negotiating for the purchase of an individual's property. We want to make sure we give that person their due process rights, and so it's really important in those cases to make sure everything is said during the meeting. And even to the extent of, if we go and visit the property, that's fine. We don't want to discourage you again from not, you know, visiting the property. Just disclose it, because the person has the right to know if you are, I went to the property and I'm using that information, my viewing of the property, in making my decision. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind if you have something where you're dealing with an individual person or an individual property or a really small number of properties, that you'll want to read through this and just make sure you're following those rules, making sure notice is given and that the person has all their rights protected, the right to know what's going on and what you're basing your decision on. After that, probably the two most common things you review and recommend on the capital improvements program and gift policy and procedures. I forgot to ask Ray, so I'm going to do it now. But they all have copies of the gift policy or do you provide it as they come up for the gift policy?
We haven't had any come to the Parks Board in a number of years.
Okay, so maybe we should get you a new copy of the gift policy just to make sure that you have a current copy of that as well. Generally, if it's an already established program like, help me,
Memorial Bench Program.
Memorial benches or trees, thank you. My mind just went blank. For memorial benches or trees, we don't take every single bench to you and say, okay, Parks Board, is this okay? Because that's an established program. You guys have already reviewed it. You're good with it. these guys can just kind of run with it. If it's a new program, if it's a new gift, if it's something substantial or different that we haven't dealt with before, then that, and it has to deal with the parks, it's potentially going to be located in the parks or somehow affect the parks, then that would come to you for review. And we will make sure we get you a copy of that gift policy so that you have that for reference. The criteria for the various types of gifts are laid out in that policy, and I think typically we do a staff report as well that addresses those issues. So that is your manual. Hopefully, our goal with providing these is just to provide you something that is a resource for you. It's oh, I know she talked about we could make somebody stop and make, how do I do that again? You can look up the motion. You can look up, if you have an ethics concern, you can take a look at it. I'm not sure we actually included our number in here, but again, if you have questions or concerns, please feel free to call us, Dave, Amy, or I. Usually somebody's around or somebody will be able to get back to you in very short amount of time if we aren't available right at that minute. So give us a call. If anybody have any questions, otherwise I will let you have your meeting. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the William Waters Plaza planned improvements. Do you have any comments, Ray?
I do. Well, Alexa from our city planning division, Alexa's an associate planner. She'll be showing some of the planned improvements for William Waters Plaza, which is a public open space across the street from the library. Alexa's been leading this project along with staff from our department, the library, and the River East Neighborhood Association. And they have a consultant hired, MSA professional services to help with the project. But they also went through a whole planning process for this area and developed a document, which I shared the link in the memo, and it's on the city website, to talk about why it's being redeveloped and what the plans are. And Alexa's going to walk us through that, because there's some that have been already installed, such as some landscaping and benches and tables. But one of the bigger things Alexa will talk on is a gazebo, which Alexa and other staff were able to get some significant donations for construction of that. So take it away, Alexa.
Thanks, Ray. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexa. I work for the Planning Services Division. I'm the associate planner. So I shared the screen for the people joining us virtually. So this is a map showing you where the plaza is that I'm going to talk to you about. It's across the street from the library, located right here. So it's at Washington and State, and this is considered a park called William Waters Plaza. So this is a fairly long-term project that I've been working on for several years now. And about back in 2015, Washington Avenue was planned for reconstruction with our Public Works Department. And as a result of this groundwork, the plaza had some utilities below it that were going to be affecting the plaza as it stood. And we used that as an opportunity to come back and redesign the space because it was going to be dug up anyway. The River East Neighborhood Association was a really vital partner in this whole planning process, as well as the public library. So we worked closely with the residents and the neighbors to not only fundraise, but also create the idea and the vision for what would be placed in this park. So this is the design that was provided by MSA, their consulting engineering firm out of Madison. So they provided this design based on several public input meetings, and so they got feedback from the public in the neighborhood. They created this. So you can see there's new pathways going through, as well as the sidewalk around the perimeter. And within this area here, there's a lawn that's featured with several planting elements, landscaping. And then there are 3 tables that were added, including trees in between each table. The tables have chessboards on them. And so everything here has already been implemented as of last year. So everything with the pathways, the green space, the tables are all there, and the final elements that have not gone in yet is this structure on the corner, which is what we're calling the gazebo, and this kind of a placeholder here, which is a placeholder for a potential art project. This is just a vision or some kind of placeholder. There's no design for that yet. So basically, we're on the final stages of implementing this whole design plan. So I'm going to talk to you first about the gazebo structure. So we've been working with the same firm, MSA, to design the gazebo. So we decided to go a more historical route to match the area. This area is actually located in a historic district. It's called the Neoclassical Historic District. It runs along Washington Avenue. It includes the Masonic Temple, the building right next door to it, the Washington Building. The library is included in that, and they all have this similar design. So we really wanted to create that historic, cohesive look to be respectful of the area. You can see it features these neoclassical style columns, and the roof kind of mimics what you see on the library with the copper edging, and the roof is a similar material. However, the materials we chose are going to be more durable and weatherproof and hopefully more affordable, but they still mimic that look. So we're going to be adding potentially some signage that says William Waters Plaza right on the edge here. Let me see if I can zoom in. So this one right here, the bottom right image, is the view if you were standing on Main Street looking east down Washington Avenue, or perhaps a kitty corner, so you would be on Washington across the street looking at the corner at the plaza. So this is the view that most drivers would see, people who are in their cars traveling. They would see this view, and then anyone else on foot would be able to obviously go anywhere they wanted, but these are the other views. If you're not in a car, you'd be in the actual park, walking by. You can stand in it. There will be it's not a ramp, but there will be a slightly raised pathway leading up to it, but it's going to be low enough that we don't need all the ADA, I guess, handrails and stuff like that. So it's very minimal increase in grade. So yeah, I don't know, anything else to add, Ray, for the gazebo?
Maybe if you can give them an idea on the scope as far as the measurement, what the stage area, what is the diameter of that roughly?
So we are still in the process of finalizing how wide we want it to be. I can go back to this. So we want it to look like this. Like, we don't want it to overpower the existing lawn area because we do want people to be able to gather here. We want this to be perhaps for very small music performances, very small scale, more quiet performances, because there is a residence next door. We're hoping that the library can take advantage of it with some kind of like reading night kind of thing. For the scale, I would estimate like 22 to 25 feet wide. If you were to do a site visit just for your own purposes, there is a landscaping bed out there now. It's a circle in the pretty much the same spot, and it's about the same size that we're hoping. So that gives you some good perspective if you want to look at it yourself later. We don't want it to overpower the space. Anything else I'm missing?
Yes.
Timeline?
Question, Alexa, this is Lori. So on the approach looking east, where the accessible, I guess, walkway is for, I assume that's wheelchair accessible ADA, that looks a bit different than what is on the reimagined slide where the landscaping beds are.
Yeah, so you're talking about this image?
Yes.
Yeah, so this image is from several years ago, and the gazebo itself has changed, I'd say, drastically since we first started. The original design was going to have a roof that would not protect you from the elements. It was kind of more of a structural artistic roof, more of just like an archway above the columns. We've moved away from this design. This was just a guider, just kind of more of a vision. We didn't stick exactly to this. There's pieces that we ended up not implementing. For example, like this pathway right here at the end. We didn't include that. We just made it all grass. There's a kiosk that we were going to do. We haven't done that yet, and we don't really have plans to do that. So this is more just a vision, not an exact plan.
And then going back to the other renderings, again, where you see that elevation that looks at that handicap accessible approach, each of those entrances are blocked. It looks like there's some kind of gate and benches. I mean, I understand this may not be the final version, but it doesn't exactly indicate that it's accessible.
So if you look at the bottom left one here, you can see this is the pathway that you can access from the sidewalk. So you can go through and go directly through the gazebo and exit out the other side. You can kind of see it here. So that will be wide enough to accommodate the ADA requirements, and you can go straight through. And then you just wouldn't go this way. Towards the corner will be landscaped, kind of just around the edge of it, and then the pathway will be accessible and you can go right through. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but it would appear that only, so like for example, only maybe one person either with a wheelchair or a walker could enter, and it might end up, I guess I'm having a hard time like visualizing it in action. I just wondered about the thought. And then the second question is, are any of these spaces permeable pavers by chance?
So the pathway leading up to it, I don't know what we've decided. I don't know if we've even gotten that far into it. I would guess to say that it would be the same concrete style sidewalk that we have elsewhere. It would not be permeable pavers. And then the actual surface of the gazebo would just be concrete as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Also, I can get into the timeline a little bit to let you know where we are. So in the design process with the consultant, we are towards the end. We're not completely done. These are not final plans, but we are looking to get more feedback now that we've gotten on the same page with staff. We're taking it out to the public and to different committees. So we're looking to take it to this group. The library board will be reviewing it later this month. And then I'm also presenting this to the River East neighborhood at the beginning of October. So that'll be our first round of getting some feedback from the public. Ray did mention this, but this gazebo should hopefully be fully funded with the money that we secured. We got a private donation that should cover all of the costs of this, which is pretty great. So yeah, this whole plaza has been a big private partnership, so funding a lot of it was provided from private donations. So yeah, I think we're looking to finish up the final designs coming this winter, and then we would like to physically install it and implement it next build season, so next year, spring, summer. Any feedback on the designs or the size of it, or just the direction we took?
This is Deb Martin. I'm sorry, I'm new, so I haven't seen this before. My question would be, I drive by there pretty often, and I have never seen any person sitting on a bench or anywhere in that area. I was wondering what the use of the park is already, and does the private funds to build the gazebo, does that also then take care of the landscaping needs? Because I mean, I wonder who would use this, because like I said, I haven't seen any. Maybe there are, and I'm not there all the time. I don't live there.
Sure.
But that's not the library entrance anyone uses, except for the condo buildings right next door to it. I don't really see much foot traffic ever there either. So, and you can't park. on either corner, those corners there. So just curious.
Sure, I can answer part of that question. So yeah, that's not the main primary entrance or even a usable entrance for the library. However, the building directly next door, the Washington building, those are only apartments, not condos, and I don't know if they're fully rented, but last I checked, they had pretty good occupancy, so there are a lot of people living there. The goal of a lot of the work that I do with neighborhoods is to attract people to our downtown and to revitalize our neighborhoods, and this is located within the River East neighborhood. So we do want to improve amenities and attract people. We haven't done any official counts to see how much foot traffic goes there, but I could anecdotally add to you that I spend a lot of time, I live downtown, I spend a lot of time in this area. Also, like, my best friend lives in the building and I see people there like all the time. But it's anecdotal, of course, but yeah, their apartment overlooks it and there's people hanging out there often. People have dogs in that building, so they do walk them through curbed. I haven't heard of any kind of litter problems, but they do walk them by. It's kind of like that apartment's backyard now. I've seen people eating their lunch there. I've seen people reading. And I think sometimes on a good day you can pick up the Wi-Fi from the library too, which might be an amenity. So I would say that it actually is people are really taking advantage of it, but that's anecdotal, so. And then maybe the landscaping question Ray could answer about maintenance and funding.
Well, the cost of the installation of the landscaping is part of the project cost, but then, yes, it'll be Bill and our landscaping division will be responsible for maintaining that. We are hoping we'll be able to work with the River East Neighborhood Association. They've helped us out on some maintenance and watering of some of the other things in the area, so those are definite opportunities, again, for us to work closely with the Neighborhood Association. And we know that the library does plan to utilize this, I think, on a regular basis for some of their youth programs. So I think it'll be a neat addition for them, and I know Jeff, the librarian, is very excited to have an outdoor facility nearby.
This is Lori. I have a question on that. Ray or Alexa, given that this is very close proximity to the apartment building there, and one could argue it's, a selling amenity for them, is there any chance of their grounds people doing, I guess, some kind of partnership in that as well? Given that, the neighborhood association may want to be part of that, but not always available or able. Just curious if that discussion or if that's an option.
I know I had an early conversation, and this is a couple years ago, and I think the planning was being developed with one of the developers. He was open to something like that, but I don't think we've had any discussions with him recently, as far as I'm aware.
No, not that I know of. They are aware of it. We've pitched the whole project to them probably more than once.
And I would, I guess, add to that, especially, when the snow flies, it may be a challenge to, get neighbors over there to do shoveling, having some experience with that.
Well, the sidewalk you would shovel, right? Because it's not on the private property.
We have staff and we have equipment down there doing sidewalk and trail clearance.
Yeah.
And through this area, we'd be running a snow blower, a ride-on snow blower and sweeper possibly going through there. So
yeah, I mean, just
I'd be looking more for assistance with the landscaping beds during the busy summer months and possible watering. But it is something we can talk to the developer on again. I know, like I said, a couple years back there was some interest shown. We can follow up with that.
Yeah, and the River East neighbors volunteer every year, and they do a collaborative planting with the park staff. So they help plant, and I know that they come. I imagine they come and help do weeding if they just happen to walk by. I know I have just kind of helped clean up. If I see trash, I pick it up. So the neighborhood really has taken this on as like a unofficial adopt a park type thing. Like, I know they're really invested in it. So if they see something there, I know that they would do something about it. So it's just nice to know there's more eyes on it than maybe other areas. Also, to just speak to what was there before, I mean, there was already planter beds there before that parks maintained, right? And the sidewalk was there. So there was already stuff that was being maintained at just a little bit extra now. I don't know if that helps, but
And I think there was some issues with some watering early on. Just kind of going back to whether or not the apartment building, that gets, quite a bit of benefit there. Is there, would they be willing to, if there is an outdoor, I guess, faucet or watering capability? I mean, I don't imagine with this grand architecture that you're going to want to pop a rain barrel over there, but just to kind of help with the ease to make it, more accessible for watering those beds and that.
yeah, definitely something to consider as we move forward with this project. If there aren't more questions about the gazebo, I wanted to just talk briefly about the potential art project. Where's my mouse? My mouse isn't working. So we have funding, a small amount of funding. Well, it's a good amount of funding, but we'll see how much it costs. We're looking to do some kind of art project, and the art, the main point that we know so far is that it has to honor William Waters, the architect. I don't know if it's working or not. So William Waters designed the library, and we modeled this gazebo kind of after his style as well. So we have some funding, and we are at the very early stages of a potential art project. We're looking for maybe more of like a symbolic approach to the art rather than your classic statue of a person. We also don't have any images of him, but I think we do want to go a little bit more creative, honoring his work, his architecture. So we will probably come back to this group to talk about that as it develops. We're also going to talk to the other groups about it as well, the River East Neighborhood and the Library Board. So this is a really exciting time because this will be the first new sculpture or art installation permanent that the city has received in a long time. If you know, the Hicks Fund has funded all of the almost all statues in the city that you might know of, and they all are from like 100 years ago. So this will be a pretty exciting time. Like, it's a brand new piece, permanent, it's high quality, it's supposed to last just like the other statues. So just maybe look out for some news about that. We're at the very early stages.
Alexa, along those lines, is going back to the gazebo, but in relation to the art piece, is that little gate looking thing intended to be a bike rack by chance? And if not, if there's going to be plantings in front of that area, is there potential that the public art installment might be some kind of creative, I guess, partnership or hybrid art / function with bike rack somehow incorporated? Or has there been any discussion about a bike rack at all here?
No, that has not come up at all. We are, basically we're kind of reinventing the whole process because this process doesn't exist on how to commission a new art piece for the city. So we're kind of making it up here with staff. So basically we're looking to just announce the idea to groups, which we're doing now. Then I'm going to work with the Public Arts Committee to create some kind of scope and proposal. And we did talk at the last Public Arts meeting. It seemed like the general concept that they liked was, we didn't vote on it, it was more just discussion, but it seemed like they liked the idea of leaving it kind of open, telling the artists what we want, but not being too strict on kind of tying them down with all these rules, and letting the artists kind of just be creative and do what they do as professionals and then submit their ideas to us. If we don't get what we want, we don't have to pick one, which is the good part about it. But we're hoping to just get some really quality designs and let the artists tell us what they think would work there. We probably will give them size restrictions, and just that the concept is to honor this architect, William Waters, and that's perhaps how we'll leave it. I don't know if I want to do that kind of thing where you add in like some kind of public furniture type element. I'd rather keep it more simple and on the main idea.
So I guess not necessarily in conjunction with the art piece, then is there going to be a discussion about placement of a bike rack or no?
Sorry, just a little technical difficulty here. I don't know how to use this mouse. It's so huge. I need to go-
And not just bike rack,
Yeah,
but
this is
I
fun.
think I see a bench in the rendering back there too.
the tab.
Are there benches planned?
One over. Sorry, just one over, yeah. Okay, I was just trying to get back to this. Sorry, my mouse ran out of batteries. Sorry, Lori. So you're talking about a bike rack.
And benches.
There, what would you?
And benches.
Benches. So there's benches there. There are no bike racks planned. That was never part of the design. So it was never considered, and we don't have the budget for it at this point. And all the concrete has already been laid, so we'd have to add it like on the side and take away from the grass area. Is that your
Like-
question?
Yes, that was my question.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions about the art? Okay, I'm gonna move on to my next item.
Yeah, again, what we wanted to do was make sure, because we're getting to the final conceptual design of the gazebo, to make sure that there were, no design concerns, and just so Alexa could explain the reasons behind design and trying to match some of the library facade as well, so. All right.
I guess my only thing is if that little gate image that was at the edge of the gazebo, it kind of looks like it could be a bike rack. But I guess I'm not entirely clear if you're saying that the area, that full area in front, or just a part of it was going to be planter beds.
So the view on the bottom left here, looking east on Washington, where it's browned out, that'll be, I hope it'll be like a very robust planter bed and full and not intended to be walked on. And that metalwork there is kind of saying to the public, don't go here. And then on the bottom, next to it, on the other openings between the columns are benches. So you would either sit there, and then the gate is just saying, I was thinking when I first saw the gate, it would be a good spot for people to take photos. Like, it'd be cool if people took maybe like a wedding photo here or engagement photos, something like that. And they can stand just like this couple in front of the beautiful landscaping with the words and the really nice building behind it. So it allows you to kind of stand, but also prevents people from walking into the planting bed.
But, so this is Deb, sorry, but if the library is planning to use this for kids, just keep that in consideration. Putting a lot of plantings on a corner is where people cut through. So I don't know, just consider how you're going to protect all that.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I know that people already cut through on the other pathway that cuts through the park. So I think unless you're crossing at the corner, people cut through on the pathways more, from what I've noticed. And I think if the library was using it, I heard them talk about some kind of reading, like book reading day. So I think the youth would be sitting on the lawn, and the person presenting would be in the actual gazebo. And yeah, definitely something to consider.
All right. Looks like a great project. Next one.
The next one is discussion of gateway signage for Millers Bay Neighborhood Association. Again, this is a project that Alexa's been spearheading through the planning division, and the Millers Bay Neighborhood Association actually developed a landscaping plan for their neighborhood, and included, or a streetscape plan. And a portion of that plan talked about some basically gateway signage as you're entering into the neighborhood association from the different directions. And one of the locations in their plan that they're recommending or considering placing is within the park. It's near Nevada Avenue, right near the pump station. It would be out obviously out close to the right-of-way behind the sidewalk. So as people are entering into the neighborhood association, they would see that sign. And Alexa's been working again with a consultant on some designs, and we're to the point now where we'd like to bring it to the Parks Board again and get some input or feedback on if there's any concerns with that. And I think this is a project that's a couple years down the road yet, Alexa, correct? Because it's based on some road improvements as well and some other things that need to be done at the same time.
Yeah.
Ray, do you have a map, or Alexa, do you have a map of where you're talking about that placement?
I can pull it up.
Because did I understand you to say that they're intending to put the Millers Bay neighborhood signage in the park?
It's a sign that will have Minami Park, but it'll say Minami Park on it, but it'll be the same type of design that they're looking to have on private properties where it states Millers Bay Neighborhood Association. And if you're familiar with Nevada Avenue, is the pump station is right at Nevada Avenue at the where it comes into the park basically, and that would be the location right there. So I don't remember how many locations they have for these signs that they're recommending, but again, one is in the park as people drive along that section.
I guess my only question is, I think further south down in the park, we have more like historic 19th century looking gas lamp type lights. Are those in, I can't remember if those are on the north side of the park also. Would it be somewhat incongruous to have mid-century mixed with 19th century style? I don't know.
I think Alexa can touch on that, but the neighborhood association, their beautification committee chose this because many of the residences were built out of the same type of stone, and that's what they're trying to match. But if you want to go into that, Alexa, that'd be good.
Sure. Okay, so this area, the Millers Bay Neighborhood Association, if I could speak for them, I'd say that they pride themselves on that mid-century modern design and architecture theme, and a lot of the houses have this stone featured, and they were very adamant that they wanted this exact look. It also is very similar to the recently created sign at Emmeline Cook Elementary School. So it's really similar, and they made sure that it would be consistent with that new sign because they really want it to be a consistent look throughout their neighborhood. And then I think
But we're talking about inside the park, which is, while it's part of both neighborhoods, the South, Menominee South and Millers Bay. I guess that's what I was trying to understand, is where in the park the location is.
The keyboard isn't working, so I was trying to pull up maps, but maybe you could just pull it up on your phones at home and look at the intersection of Nevada and Menominee Drive.
It would basically, it'd be located,
So it's in
pretty
the
much,
right-of-way.
it's in the right of way, so it'd be, if there's not a sidewalk there, so it'd be almost where a sidewalk would be going. There's utilities that run through there, so that's, the placement needs to be determined based on where those location of those utilities are. So it'd be right behind the roadway basically, but far enough off.
Yeah, so.
Oh, okay. So not over on the water, more closer to the road.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like the point of it is to be viewed almost from the road or on foot, but the issue is that on that area where Nevada is, there's no sidewalk on the park side, and there is an entrance, but it's not really considered an entrance. It's really a service drive to access that pump house. So it would
If there's no sidewalk and it's just like plopped in the grass, but it's a bench.
It's not a bench.
I'm sorry?
It's not a bench.
It says stone pillar with stone seat wall. Is the seat wall not for sitting?
I didn't think it was. I think that's just the term they use. I don't think we're designing this to be sat on, because there's supposed to be landscaping surrounding it too.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's just a term. It's not a literal
I think
picture
that's
bottom
just a
on it kind of
confusing
seat.
term. I don't think we want to attract people to sit on it. It's just a decorative wall. It's a placemaking feature. It's going to be kind of flanking both sides of the road, and you'll see it when you're entering, either on foot or with your car. And we're specifically talking about the Nevada intersection, but this is intended to be throughout the neighborhood on 5 different locations. But we're starting with Nevada because each intersection that was selected in the plan offers their own unique challenges, such as utilities and underground right-of-way width. So we picked this one. So specifically, this one is the only one that's going to have a park location. So so if you see here, the top one is the Miller's Bay logo, and then the bottom one is the third one is the Minami Park logo. So in this instance, on the east side of Menominee Drive, it'll have the park logo saying Menominee Park, and on the west side, it'll have the Miller's Bay logo and say Miller's Bay. So you'll see it when you're driving in on both sides, and it's just going to be kind of like an identifier sign.
Can you say that again? Just so, are we still talking about the Nevada entrance? I'm sorry, just to clear, because I live right by here, so I'm trying to find a picture. Will the one side of the sign say Menominee Park as you're walking down that path by the pump house into the park, and the other side say Miller's Bay neighborhood as you're walking out of the park?
So there's going to be, so nothing is by so let me back up. So the trail that's in the park that you're perhaps thinking of, it's not going to be by that trail that follows the water. This is going to be closer, like directly by the roadway.
Yes, the one that connects the trail to the park to Menominee Drive.
Yes, so it'll be right there close to the intersection. One will be for the park, identifying the park. One will be for the neighborhood, identifying their neighborhood with the sailboat logo.
Tony, it won't have words and logos on both sides. It'll just be on the side of the face towards the road with the city emblem and saying Menominee Park. And it'll be at a slight angle, so it's as you're driving into the neighborhood, basically.
Okay, and that's good. I think the way I was envisioning was that I don't like, me personally, if as you're leaving the park, you're seeing that you're entering a neighborhood association. I think that would come across as unwelcoming to that neighborhood, or kind of almost show that you're marking. I like the idea of welcoming people into a park like that. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it'll be exactly that.
Well, I think it's a neat idea, and Emmeline Cook has done a good job with I think they put a little one of these by their field also, and then over by the school. So I think it looks good. My only other question would be, this is probably more big picture. Are other neighborhood associations discussing this in the town? Because I feel like that could get weird in a hurry if every neighborhood association is now marking their territory. So I just was curious, big picture wise, if that has come up at all.
I'd say short answer, no. This has only come up because they have their Miller's Bay Streetscape Plan. It's an actual document that a consultant created through a whole public input process. So the only reason the city is even considering it is because there was already a plan developed through all the different analyses and discussions with the neighborhood. So this doesn't exist for any other neighborhood. However, there are neighborhood signs on top of the street signs that do kind of identify the neighborhood boundaries.
Yeah, and I know, I'm aware of those signs. I think this is just much, obviously, bigger and grander in scale, and so that's why I was curious. I'm glad to hear that, because I think that sometimes when we divide things up like that, I think that it kind of like, like you feel like you shouldn't be crossing the street into the other neighborhood, So that's just my personal take on that.
Sure, yeah, that's good input.
Alexa, just one additional comment. I like the sign. I don't think it's too large at all to create any kind of obstructions, but it's still sightly enough. And I do fully support giving neighborhoods identities, and so that there's a clear visit or a clear indication that you're entering a specific neighborhood. I think that helps to strengthen communities and the cohesiveness, and I fully support giving neighborhoods identity. So this looks like a good spot for it.
Thank you.
And Alexa, I just want to bring up that the Millers Bay streetscape plan does refer to those seat walls as benches on page 48. You know, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I'm just trying to think of, you know, we get a lot of like feedback at council about sidewalks to nowhere, or, you know, these kinds of commentary, but I just want to make sure I understand that they're making something that appears to be a bench, but you're not supposed to sit on it if that's the intention, but the plan talks about it as a piece of furniture along with the signs, so I'm a little confused still.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to the William Waters question. Like the vision plan that was the original vision, and now we're narrowing it down to actually implementation. So if you look through that whole document, there's probably a dozen different designs they offered for this exact project, all varying in different aspects. Like some of them had planter beds built into it. Some of them were designed as benches. But now that we've gone into the actual design build phase, this specific one is not a bench, and it will be fully landscaped around it with no path leading to it. Like, we're not going to have a path leading to it, and if it's not landscaped, it'll have grass. I would think of it more as like the Oshkosh, like City of Oshkosh gateway signs that we have. Like, it's going to be clear that it's not meant to be sat on. It's a sign. It's like an entrance gateway sign.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Alexa? Well, I think both projects look, you know, really exciting. Thank you so much. All right, staff reports.
Thanks, Alexa. I'm going to keep mine brief because I know the meeting's gotten a little longer than what we're used to, but 2 items I wanted to provide an update to the board. First one is update on Lakeshore Park Phase 1, the initial development. We did receive 13 proposals from consulting firms to come in and start design, architectural and engineering design. I've had staff from other departments as well as our staff narrowing those down, and we're to the point now where we're ready to recommend a firm to the Common Council, and I would expect that's going to be on the next council agenda, which is September 22nd, I believe. So by the time we meet again, we'll have a consultant on board, and then all the work will begin as far as the design of that four-season building and parking lot area in the public plaza. The second item, update on electronic pay stations at the boat launches. As you may recall, back in mid-July roughly, we installed 4 electronic pay stations, 1 at Fugelberg boat launch, 2 at Rainbow, and then 1 at 24th Ave boat launch. Just Stacy pulled the numbers for me, and I just wanted to share those. In the 8 days, I think it was 8 days, 8 days in July, we had 333 transactions. This is across all 4 of those. And I just took a look at the number of cash and credit card. Just to give you an idea, the number paid in cash was about 59%. Credit card or debit card use was about 41%. Taking a look at the month of August, for the entire month, we had 1,200 transactions, and it's now at about 53% cash and 47% credit debit card. So I think we're seeing what we had hoped we'll see, that more people will be getting it away from cash and using more of the credit debit cards, which again is safer with the machines and easier for our staff and finance staff to reconcile. So what we've done, we actually went ahead and purchased the additional 4 electronic pay stations, and we just had those delivered. And so we're hoping that by the end of this month, that we'll have those other 4 units installed, which would be at Steiger boat launch, Mill Street boat launch, and then we're putting 2 in Minami Park because of the heavier use there. So by the end of this boating season, we'll have electronic pay stations at all our sites, and I think it's been well received. We've had minimal issues or maintenance items. We just had a couple where the dollar bills or something maybe got jammed into the machine over a weekend, and we were able to get in there and take care of that real quickly. But I think for the most part, we're very happy, and I think we've gotten a lot of great feedback from the community so far. So wanted to report on that.
Great. Chad?
Super. I'll try and keep mine brief as well, but there's a few things just want to highlight the park board on with things happening in our parks around the community. One with the Pollock Community Water Park, the Lazy River repair. Late last summer in 2019, when we were shutting down, we detected a leak in the Lazy River itself. Then we brought a consultant in, or a contractor, to help us in the late fall to detect where that might be. But then we needed to have the system up and running in spring to do further detection on that unit or that location. We ended up finding 2 different leaks to the facility, one being in the turbine pump that loops back into the Lazy River, another one within our surge tank where the water comes back from the main drains into the facility and goes through the circulation system. Leak number 1 has been repaired in the turbine pump through Newman Pools and currently working on the second one in the surge tank. So those things are taking place with efforts, doing through the Community Foundation and the endowment. That's how we're working with these repairs, and it's been going along very well. That will be back up in full operation with that facility in 2021 from that. The Memorial Bench program itself, I think, was highlighted before in the discussions, just as this type of donations that come into our park system. And this year has been pretty extravagant for us, going through at $1,500 a bench throughout our parks. We're able to place these. I think we had 3 go in at Roosh Park out on the west side of town. We have a couple at South Park that's going in, and then two down at Minami Park that took place this year. And it seems like when we started putting concrete pads in for different areas to use our money more wisely for these pads, that more people walking by have been more inspired to donate to our program. So we hope to encourage more people in public to check with us as going forward to see if we have other locations going in, and hopefully it'll be a good advertisement for the program going in. They do get used very well along the trails and the corridors, and hopefully this will continue along into the future. South Park will have many locations to place these in as we move along with the developments there too. If you've been out driving around into the parks and seen Rainbow Memorial Park down at the corner of Pinocqua and Rainbow Drive, where the athletic field was put in last year, we did some extensive work finally after the scoreboard was installed and actually have nice grass growing in the back end of that complex to give that a better appeal and better drainage for us for maintenance in the long run. So it's nice to see the north end of Menominee Park getting finally completed through all the construction over the past year. One of the biggest highlights is we worked in conjunction with the street division to do some asphalt repairs down in Menominee Park along the Pratt Trail route, where we've had a lot of challenges along the gutter lines and things of that nature. We'll continue to try to budget dollars available for restoration in the near future, but it's been a great cooperative effort with the street division and Public Works to help us with these repairs. So as you go around, it isn't quite as bumpy as you go past the amusement center and the areas along there in the community playground. So when you see the streets division, please thank them for their assistance out there. And finally, with the Menominee Park, the Zoo Eagle exhibit, we're with completion of that exhibit as far as the infrastructures and all those. We have a few softscape items that we're working with, and then I'm currently working on locating them birds for hopefully for development or for introduction here in 2021, so we can get proper training and with our staff throughout the course of the year. So that's a very exciting project to see come fruition here too. So hopefully get through the zoo here over the next couple weeks before we close down the last Sunday in September and check out the facility. Be grateful. So is there any questions on some of the updates?
Bill, you're up next.
Okay. I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of update about the Wisconsin DNR Urban Forestry Grant that I believe I mentioned at a previous meeting. We're getting ready to implement the installation of those trees this fall. So we have contracted with Ranger Services out of Appleton to do the planting of the trees. And the project area encompasses the Sawyer Payne and Congress Field neighborhood associations. Initially, the plan was to fill in the Sawyer Payne area, but given some of the future construction work that's going to occur on some of the areas, like including Algoma Boulevard, we had enough tree capacity to kind of move into a new neighborhood. So we're going to work in that Congress Field area a bit as well. So that's kind of exciting. So we'll see some changes up in that territory where there is large enough terraces to work with and opportunity to install some trees. So that work should be occurring the latter part of October and into early November. We were honored to receive a Curb Appeal Award from the Oshkosh Rotary Southwest Club, which recognized our contribution in the beautification of Oshkosh, specifically in the floral plantings at Minami Park. So as many of you know, my staff does all the landscape installations and flower bed maintenance, as well as the forestry work. And so we're quite honored to receive an award in the business category. The club seeks to recognize a lot of private home landscapes as well, and that's kind of the main focus of their program. But a few years back, they decided to start recognizing some of the commercial establishments as well. So we're pretty happy to be recognized in that regard. So also in that general territory of the zoo, we work with the parks team on the installation of some landscape plants around the new community playground. So as many of you remember, that was kind of a rough area initially as far as landscaping. So with the installation of the new poured in place and perimeter walkway, we installed some landscaping to try to make that area a little more enticing and interesting for visitors. Then finally, we've been, obviously for the last couple years, been working on managing some of the emerald ash borer issues that we've had in the community. We've had a treatment program in process for about 8 years, but some of the trees that we weren't able to financially treat, we have begun to remove some of those trees throughout the neighborhood. So the ash borer hit us pretty hard last winter, so there's been a lot of dead trees that we've been having to deal with currently. So we still continue to have trees under treatment, but this has been a tough season for the staff in removing quite a number of trees. And then also we've begun doing some replacements as well during the spring planting season too. So we're hoping to eventually fill in a lot of those voids, but I just encourage everybody to kind of bear with us. We've got a small team trying to do quite a few tree removals currently, and our other work as well. So it's going to be a challenge for us for the future, but I think people are understanding, and we've been seeing a lot of emerald ash borer also on private property. So we're reminding residents to try to mitigate that early on, so that they aren't having to deal with dead standing trees on their properties. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Bill.
Hi, this is Deb. Can I just make a comment? I have to say that the landscape around at the Menominee is just beautiful, and many places in the city. So you guys, I don't know how you keep it all up, but it really is outstanding. I just have a comment about the playground, which I love, and I've been there several times because my granddaughter loves it. And I've seen the trees. The thing to know is those small flower plants, those are getting trampled. We should stay in the walkways, but they're kids and they don't. So I'm not sure how sustainable they are, but otherwise it's really, really lovely. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Jenny?
All right. So just first on my list is, the Minami Park Zoo. I'm not sure how many of you are kind of familiar with what we did there this summer, but Due to COVID, we did have to restrict the number of visitors in the zoo to 50 people at a time. So between park staff and senior center staff, we were able to man the gate and make sure that we were keeping only 50 people in the zoo at the time. And most people were very, very happy that the zoo was able to be open for the summer and were willing to wait. Typically during the week, there wasn't a long wait. On the weekends, you know, there could get to be a line out front, and just as people left, people would come in. So the other thing that Chad was able to get installed this year was actually, it's a counter where people come into the zoo, and it's all run through the new computer system that we have in the Lakefly Cafe now. So it was really, really a great year to have that in place. Since we were tracking number of visitors at the gate with a person, we were able to match that up to the system. And we have some really accurate numbers now, which is great for the zoo. So the zoo did not open until June 1st this year, that first weekend in June, I should say. And typically would open the first weekend in May. So we saw right around 17,000 visitors per month, June, July, and August. So just over 17,000. So we saw about 52,000 people in those 3 months of the zoo, which we were very happy about, given the fact that we had to restrict it to only 50 at a time, and we also did not have May as a month in the zoo either. So, and we'll get the count at the end of September here. So again, people were really excited to see the new animals we had this year at the zoo and our new collection that we permanently own now as well. So it was a good season down there, and as Chad said, if you haven't been down there to check things out, you got a couple weeks here yet. So the next thing I would like to talk about is a new event we're having in 2020. Due to COVID, we aren't able to do our Touch a Truck event, which is usually in September, or host our Zooloween event, which is usually in October. Both of those events will draw in thousands and thousands of people. So as a staff team, we came up with a new event, and it's called Truck or Treat. This will be a fundraiser for the zoo, and it will be actually out in Minami Park, and different area businesses and organizations, as well as businesses that have different trucks, you know, dump trucks, tow trucks, any different type of end loaders. They will set up trick or treat stations in Menominee Park around the loop. So vehicles will stay in their, or vehicles will be able to drive through. Everyone will stay in their vehicles, and they will kind of trick or treat throughout the park. So we want to offer something for families to be able to do this fall. And for now, things are going really well. And Stacey, I'm not sure what we're up to with tickets sold, but I know that the tickets are selling very quickly. We're going to be selling 250 tickets per hour. So the event is on October 17th, and it is from 11 to 1 p.m. And we'll be selling 250 tickets for the first hour and 250 tickets for the second hour. And then we'll also kind of have entertainment. The Oshkosh Area Community Foundation is going to be helping us with that and providing some entertainment. And for the vehicles and families as they're waiting to get into the event. So we're really excited to be able to offer something for our families to do this fall.
Jenny, I just want to add that for buying the tickets, it is online only.
I'm sorry, what?
For if you're going to purchase a ticket for the event, they are being sold online only, and you can get the link through the Oshkosh Parks Department. It's not something that traditionally you could come down to the office or go to Festival Foods and purchase, but we are doing online purchasing only for this event.
Just a question about the number. So if we restricted people to 50 at a time over the summer in the zoo, I'm assuming this is outside the zoo in the rest of the park that we're going up to 250, right?
Yes, correct. And the other difference, of course, is that they are not allowed to leave their vehicle. So, you know, in the zoo, of course, they were.
It's 250
That's
vehicles.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. I think this will be lots of fun for folks.
Jenny's still
Yes, again, we're very excited to be able to offer something this fall to families. So we've got a lot of positive feedback about it so far, and we've had a lot of positive feedback as well from different booths. I'm sorry, someone must be at my house. I apologize. We also got a lot of very positive feedback from different organizations that are, very excited that they're able to somehow become involved. So we're excited for that. And the last point for tonight is the Children's Amusement Center as well. We were able to be opened this summer on a limited basis over there as well. So we were opened Friday through Monday, and families could come down and ride the train and do the water equipment. So that worked out well too. The staff worked very hard to keep things clean and sanitized. Sanitizing the train after every single use, and we had to seat families if they were not from the same household 2 cars apart to keep everybody safe. So definitely had a little extra cleaning procedures and really help from the staff to keep things safe this summer, but we were able to have a summer at the amusement center as well. So I think that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
All right, well, thank you, Jenny.
All right.
All right, any other business? Nope. All right.
Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, everybody.